Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome. Bienvenue to the beautiful city of Antananarivo. Welcome to the Africa50 General Shareholder Meeting. I'm particularly pleased that the Africa50 General Shareholders Meeting has brought us all together to reflect on the impactful work of our institutional work to discuss infrastructure opportunities here in Madagascar and in other continents. Opportunities that will contribute to the growth and development of our Africa. Opportunities that I hope will create the next generation of African champions. We are here as well to share and exchange and make happen transactions that will improve the lives of our people. The needs, infrastructure needs of on our continent are huge, and it's important that together we focus on actions to bring solutions to this infrastructure gap. I think that Madagascar reflects in many ways the story of Africa's growth and resilience. A country with abundant natural resources that has withstood the global macroeconomic difficulty, headwinds, and is poised for growth. As the fourth largest island nation in the world, our host, Madagascar, is a country known for its hospitality, its huge biodiversity and abundant natural resources, its solar and hydropower potentials, the critical minerals like cobalt and nickel make this country a prime location for investment in renewable energy and sustainable industries. Your Excellency, President and President of the Republic, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and the fellow people of the Republic of Madagascar for the trust that you have placed in us by investing in Africa50. As my GPD colleague said, to date, our institution, your institution, is held by 32 African countries, including Madagascar, of course, an important shareholder, but also the AFDB and 2 African central banks. It is through this trust that you have given to us that some operations we were able to invest in 25 projects through which you are a beneficiary of some, and throughout the continent. And the overall cost of the project exceeds 8 billion USD. It is through this trust and capital that you have given to us that we could have this result. Your Excellency, I'm very excited through the project that the government under your leadership has embarked on, an ambitious plan to leverage its untapped hydropower potential to achieve your vision, which is to increase the share of clean energy in the energy mix to 75% by 2030. Africa50 applauds these efforts, which serve as a reminder of the importance of infrastructure as the spine for economic growth, sustainable development, and well-being of the population. I'm even more excited, Excellency, in accompanying you and your government in the implementation of your vision by ensuring the development of the Vulube hydropower plant with the capacity of 120 megawatt. I know how important it is for you that we implement this project in the fastest way. I remember you remembering that, and I told you I make effort to follow your instructions in this sense. I would like to thank you, Excellency, for the orientations that you provided for us and for your support in the implementation of those projects, but not only that, but in Madagascar and in Africa as well, that we can accompany. Now it's imperative that we deliver infrastructures that meet the needs of the population and businesses of Madagascar and the entire African continent. Africa50 over the last year has made important infrastructure projects with international standards, always guided by the speed of the implementation of the project and the scale across our continent. We had few important achievements and performances. Allow me to cite a few, 2 or 3 of them, which are important. In December 2023, last year, the Acceleration Fund for Africa50 infrastructure secured $222.5 million at first close from predominantly African investors. And this is an achievement which is the first in Africa. This fund is, according to us, a significant step forward for African capital mobilization to bridge the gap in the infrastructure gap in Africa. It allowed us to gather in national and international companies, insurance companies, African investors to fund African infrastructures with impact, which is impactful and acceptable for their investors. Excellency, Mr. President, with AFDB, investors manage more than $2.3 trillion. Africa50 has the intention and the will to work more in order to mobilize and catalyze even just a portion of these $2.3 trillion for African infrastructures. At the same time, we are trying to securing other funding, but we also have assets in Africa that we need to mobilize. Finally, I would like to mention our collaboration, Excellency, with some of African shareholders to find innovative. We are proud that we have just concluded the first asset recycling program. This is the first. This is a recycling program of assets. We were unlocking capital for the governments without adding to sovereign debt. So capital that will help fund other new infrastructure projects.
L'engagement de la Banque africaine de développement ici à Madagascar s'élève à plus d'1 milliard.
More than $1 billion on transportation, energy, agriculture, representing more than 98% of the portfolio. In the energy sector, the bank is a key partner that mobilized more than $431 million to improve the access to a modern, sustainable, and affordable energy. There is South Africa, which is very important for you now, dear President, should be the basic reference for the energy for the two countries to bring the thermal production to less than 10% 30%, reducing the production cost of the country to more than 30%. It enables Jirama, the national electricity company, to progressively eliminate the grant that is too high from the government. And I was shocked when you told me in advance that the subvention for Jirama from the government to Jirama is 250 million per year. We can fix that with your mission, and you've done an excellent job here, dear President. Please allow me to also highlight a project that has been said by Mr. Alain Bobisse, the hydropower plant of Ulube that enables us to create 1,000 employment. It's still construction is still ongoing. Once increased, it's going to contribute to an increase of 30% of the energy in the country, and it's a reliable and affordable energy for more than 2 million citizens in Madagascar, enabling this national company to save 1 million per year. I lead a bank, so normally we have investment in the country through banks, through Africa50. So this country is bankable. Madagascar is bankable. It means that our president is also bankable. Thank you for all your excellent efforts, dear President. We are still committed to support Madagascar in this effort, aiming to open the country and to facilitate the development of trade with the rest of the continent, thanks to sustainable transportation project, thanks to the development of corridor and facilitation of exchanges, 165 kilometers of roads, the section of Analambisa-Pimanda, and 4 bridges on the National Road number 9 were built, so reducing the 48 hours trip to 5 hours. That road was registered between until 2023 with a heavy track of up to 108 tracks per day until 2023. So these are all adapted to the strategy of Madagascar for the implementation of a leading zone in the African continent. Dear President, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, the development of infrastructures and for the economic growth for Africa is there, and Madagascar is open to businesses and ready to partner to have partnership that is going to promote a growth and contribute to agriculture, renewable energy, and logistics. Dear President and ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, the success of Africa50 in the mobilization of capitals and realization of infrastructure projects are moving forward fastly with its capacity to answer to challenges thanks to the implementation of an appropriate funding. Being a member of Africa50, we are convinced to be committed to the transformation of Africa's potentials to a shared prosperity. Collectively, we must remain determined, and we need to be open to mobilize capitals, overcome obstacles for investment, and fulfill sustainable infrastructure projects with processing that have high impact in Madagascar and in the whole Africa. In front of challenges and opportunities open in front of us, Africa50 is better positioned to implement projects which are bankable, having important important contribution to the development, and with shareholders who are aware of the risks. A lot has been done during last year, and the investment platform of Africa50 is prepared for the new success for the coming years. The support, the unfailing support of our shareholders and the board and the general the staff are really motivated in our success. Together, we cannot have a high economical growth, and we will have a high economic growth for our population. We thank all our shareholders who are present here for their commitment in front of this mission and the Africa50 vision. You are investors who have courage, and you have a generosity that is shared with your investment in Africa. You bring difference, and you perfectly illustrate the Malagasy proverb that says, after this General Assembly of shareholders, nothing is difficult that we cannot master with diligence. Nothing is too hard when there is a motivation. So now we are preparing tomorrow's Africa. Thank you very much.
Dear member of Africa50, your role is really crucial. We need to work together to ensure the funding of this ambitious project and allow Madagascar to transition green and energy and renewable. And I'm persuaded that after this meeting that we can see the light and get out of the darkness by supporting this project that is really in my heart. It's not only for Madagascar, but it's for the whole of Africa, because energy transition is at the heart of competitiveness and resilience of our economy. This project, they are concrete solutions to respond to the energy need of our country, of our population, and our industry. The future of Madagascar lies in this clean energy, sustainable and accessible. I'd like to share with you the situation of energy in Madagascar. Energy situation in Madagascar is unsupportable. Currently, the production of energy in Madagascar lays mainly on a thermal center. On this dependence has a huge economic expenditure for our country for each kilowatt produced. The real cost is 1,200 ariary to 20 cents US, but the selling of it to the public is 10 cents of US dollar. So the government must fill in the gap, the 15 cents of dollar, which is very huge for the government, and this difference filled in by the government support the annual deficit of 250 million US dollars each second, each minute, each day that happens increases the financial burdens for our country. We cannot allow ourselves to lose time. It is imperative to optimize our investment towards energy transition in hydroelectric project. That studies have been finished, and as I mentioned earlier, energy is the key of industrialization of Madagascar. and without productions of energy, and which is cheap, our country will never reach its real potential for its development and emergence of Madagascar. Investing in renewable energy is a choice for a sustainable future and inclusive that leads us to economic growth, that development that is really expected by the populace. Renewable energy represent sure investment and which is cheap, that will contribute to the development of the country and will lead us to a future which is brighter and more sustainable and greener. It allows to create jobs for future generations and living a framework which is decent life. And our objective is to double or triple our energy capacities to accelerate these energy transitions. And we have launched a wind farm, solar farm with 50 megawatt in 50 districts out of the 126 districts and we are projecting to install more 600 megawatt in solar farm. Madagascar has strong hydroelectricity, more than 7,000 megawatts available resources that we are determined to exploit. Africa has a unique opportunity to affirm itself as a world leaders in fighting climate change by supporting innovative projects and sustainable and laying the foundations of the continent which is with equity and for the sustainable development, not only for Madagascar, but for the whole of the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the strong conviction that we build together Africa that we want, united Africa, prosperous Africa. We are a rich continent and comparable with our cultural diversity as well as our huge natural resources. I said that Africa, it's not a problem, but Africa is a solution. And I would like to feeling through our vision and our faith that Madagascar would not be the tail, would be the head for the development and the example of development in the African continent. I have the habit to remind that Africa has a surface which is bigger than Europe and USA and China, all of them three combined, with 60% of arable land that has not been exposed. More than 65 millions of our population are under 30. These are in a stable potential that would put our continent to the center of development of the future of the world. We are a continent facing challenges to improve the living conditions of our population through industrialization that need to go through energy transition to transform our countries. We need to mobilize ourselves to change the course of history. Agricultural transformation is also primordial challenges for our country and also for Madagascar in particular. We have built our fight to have our sovereignty, and we are still fighting for food sovereignty of our respective countries of this continent and for the planet. Me personally, I would like to announce to you that we are going to transform our country, Madagascar, through the agricultural transformation. And because I'd like to share a situation that I say, a good father is someone who can feed his family, and a good president is someone who knows how to feed his population. And me, I know that I am a good father and I would become a good president to feed the Malagasy population. Dear President of the AFDB, you have talked about, we have the match of it is a pride during the AFCN. Mr. President, but we did manage to defeat you, not 1-0, but 2-0. But today I launch again a challenge. It's not on football, but food security and self-sufficiency, food security, because you know Madagascar is the third country of rice producer is in Madagascar. We have Nigeria is the first producer, the second is Egypt. But with the effort that we are undertaking, Madagascar, fortunately, in few years, we will be the first producer of rice in the African continent. And I explain to you why, because we are going to modernize the agriculture practices through mechanization, using hybrid seeds, and using the last technology. And Madagascar can and must be a zone for agricultural transformation. Rice is the staple food for Malagasy population. And we produce 4 million tons on an annual basis. Of 80% of Malagasy population are the agriculturers. And currently then, the harvest in Madagascar is only 3 tons per hectares, but by using the seeds for hybrid rice, it could go up to 12 tons per hectares. And we have experienced it in the northern part of Madagascar and in the highland. It is possible to triple, even to increase it 4 times the agricultural productions in our country. The studies have shown that the productions of 1 million tons of paddy can generate 2% of additional economic growth that will lead to the growth rate that we'll have to have for 2024, 5%. And our wish, if we manage to do this, to have this project and program, we will go directly 2% additional to reach 7% since from 2025, when we produce 1 million tons of additional tons. And agriculture is $1,200 per ton, and with more than 100,000 hectares of rice field, it will represent $2 billion for income for our country. That's why we are focusing on agricultural transformation for our country. Additionally, next year, my quality as a president of the SADC, we have the SADC summit in August next year with the participation of the 16 member states. It is an opportunity for investment, and we put their incentive measures to soften the regulations regarding investment. And lastly, there is Emirates linking internally with Dubai. It is a trigger for tourism development and economy in Madagascar. For this, then we need 11,000 rooms, additional rooms, and many hotels will be built this year. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I reiterate my gratitude to Africa50 for having chosen Madagascar as a host of this General Meeting. I also would like to express my gratitude for AFDB for its support and leadership, and the initiative as such as this for the development of infrastructure for energy, transport, agriculture, and private sectors in Madagascar. Your trust in our country is a strong signal, and we rely on you to accompany Madagascar and Africa for its transformation to construct a sustainable future for the prosperity of future generations. Madagascar is currently working on transformation. Big projects have been implemented on the territory. Among these projects, I'll mention a few. Construct of motorway first motorway in Madagascar linking Antananarivo to Thomas, responding to the needs to have those connection of the two regions and to modernize transport. This new motorway of 260 kilometers will reduce mainly the traffic between the two countries of Madagascar, the capital, and the port city of the 2 hours only instead of 8 to 12 hours. Once it is finished, and the economic benefit for this motorway is economy in fuels that could be reducing up to 40%. I mentioned also the project of the transport, cable transport in the capital of Madagascar, one of the solutions for the innovative mobility, because the city of Antananarivo is just for 300,000 population, but it is expanding an urban way with more than 3 million inhabitants currently. So it is mandatory to find ways to solutions as sustainable and innovative. That's the reason why we creating new cities, Tanamasrand. The objective is to free the big agglomeration because the city is saturated with high crescents, with intense migrations and lack of infrastructure and equipment. Project that is really in my heart, I'd like to share with you, that will literally change the landscape of the country and connected many regions and cities. The roads, solar road on the eastern coast of Madagascar, 1,600 kilometers, that will improve hugely the living conditions of the inhabitants of the regions and the towns and of Madagascar. Ladies and Madagascar, and ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my speech, Africa has all resources, the talent, and the willingness to succeed. But this potential will not be free itself. It only through common visions and common commitment. This general meeting of Africa 50 should be the catalyst to transform our ambitions into action, hand in hand, together at all levels, private sector, public actors, donors. We can make this dream as a reality. I wish you to have a fruitful exchange and effective collaboration to build connected Africa, resilient and prosperous. So I declare officially opened the 24th of the General Meeting of Africa 50. I thank you for your kind attention.
I have the immense pleasure to be hosting this very important discussion. The discussion on not one, but two critical topics, which will be asset recycling that our illustrious CEO talked about this morning, and we're very pleased to have done the first one on the continent, and on transmission line financing, which we're going to need if we're going to achieve energy access. Et, Monsieur le Ministre.
Minister, within the Madagascar framework, His Excellency, the President of the Republic, mentioned two important assets this morning. The second was the sun And the first is the highway. Can you give us details about the funding mechanism on transport sector, but or maybe as well in transport in general? Thank you and welcome Adesina President and CEO Adesina, the CEO, and welcome to Madagascar. So effectively regarding the highway, this will be to allow reduce the trip between Madagascar, between Antananarivo, the capital city, and Tuamasina. And there are many economic flow passing by this way. And Madagascar, Antananarivo is the center of the economy. So we wanted to design about a highway that can maintain this flow and funded by equity. And this is a mixed funding, and part of it will be because we wanted to make the cost as the most bankable one and the lowest one, because we want to seek this public-private partnership to reassure the private sector that there will be return on investments. So this highway will be built in 2 years, and we will attend the planning. Will achieve the planning, which is 80 kilometers per year, but the cost, the delay, and the quality. So time is very important. The timeline is very important in everything that we do. And we have the public-private partnership. We have a few projects involving PPP here in Madagascar, in air sector, customs services, and everything related to power production. And the idea is to bring funding, alternative funding and innovative funding to have the lowest risks on the project and to make those projects registered as fast as possible, because time is important, and having projects that can reduce poverty, improve people's lives, and to become an economic attraction. In terms of asset recycling, there is a possibility to do that with the ports, airports that we have, and the experiences that we have for and by African operators that we already have can be enriching to us to see to learn lessons from their experiences, and would like to share as well with people who are here. Something come to my mind immediately. You said this highway is 250 kilometers long, and it's important to deliver 80 kilometers very quickly. And maybe can you give us a picture of the first phase, like having this first phase and then having the second phase without being indebted. So of course, the experience of each and everyone is to see this possibility, because this is a new approach. And we'll have to discuss about it with the minister in charge of the transport and public works to see this funding and to be able to accompany people on the possibility based on studies that we'll do, and the possibility of railway transport as well alongside this highway.
John, as the CEO of Motivo, you have, and my numbers may be wrong, but I think you have 3,000 or so kilometers of transmission line that you finance, more or less. What I want you to give us a sense of, and also the audience, is that you have historically financed transmission lines a certain way. And what is being proposed now as an innovative financing mechanism is a transmission line PPP. And we're proud that Kenya will be, or Africa50 jointly with Kenya will be the first one that will be deployed. Why don't you give us a sense of how you used to do it, how it's being done now, and what are the differences, and how is it that you see this new mechanism as being positive and hopefully something that can be rolled out?
Thank you. Let me just, again, I'll be extremely brief, but I have to go back in history. Approximately 25 years ago, Kenya made a deliberate decision to unbundle generation. So there's a lot of investment in generation that time, but 10 years later, that's 15 years ago, the government realized this generation was increasing because we had brought a couple of IPPs and the companies were increasing, but the transmission network was not moving fast. So they made a decision to form KETRACO, that, as I said, 15 years ago, focusing purely on transmission infrastructure. That's 132 kV and above. So when you took over, the country had 3,400 kilometers of transmission lines. Over time, and I can promise you by the end of this calendar year, we'll have increased the numbers to 10,000 kilometers. So how did you do that? One, the model that the government was using is that the National Treasury was borrowing concessional loans from African Development Bank, World Bank, the French FD and the other players. So that's a model that has been used for all those years until where we are. We've just done our transmission master plan, and our projection is to bring, for the next 20 years, another almost 9,600 kilometers. The numbers I've looked at is Kenya requires approximately $5 billion US for the next 20 years. That means it's 250 billion years per year. That's what we need to improve our network to reach a certain level. We already have some funding ADBs financing 3 new projects, World Bank and the rest. But to meet these numbers, it's important, and the government has made a deliberate decision to open up the space to private sector. So we started our journey on PPPs. We initially started 2016, 2020, but then we got an expression of interest by Africa50. We have another expression of interest by Adani. We have another one by EDF from France that have moved to different directions, at different levels, sorry. With Africa50, we have moved through the whole journey of from expression of interest, their proposal being approved by the committee, going to develop the project, and currently we're just about to go negotiations. Our prayer is that within the next few weeks, we'll close that. Similarly, at different projects, almost the same level. So we see ourselves getting commercial closure within this calendar year, and the law gives us 1 year maximum to get financial closure. So that means by next year, we believe we'll be having financial closure for the existing projects. As we continue forward, then 2 years construction, hopefully we'll have projects done under PPP coming up 2027 around that time. KETRACO has an asset base of more than $2.something billion worth of projects. So that's also another room that we can talk about asset monetization at a certain level. Then we can see how to recycle the money back to reinforcing the grid. Thank you.
But I think the common theme here is that you will not be incurring additional indebtedness. That is correct, right, with this mechanism?
Yes, yes, I confirm. So as I said earlier, the model was National Treasury, the government, or Ministry of Finance would borrow money from the DFIs and grant the money to KETRACO. So the government has actually told us that yes, the debt ceiling has reached a very high level. So therefore, transmission has to start thinking of other mechanisms of financing, and just like generation, that's how we are thinking about it. So in future, there's going to be less and less burden going to government, and KETRACO and more come into private sector to finance and partner with us and make the projects reality as we target to meet our targets in the master plan.
Yeah, and I think that's the point here. Even though these two topics we're talking about are distinct, they're somewhat related, because the goal is to allow additional breathing room for our governments and finding other ways of financing and just going to borrow, which hits the debt ceiling of our country where they're restricted. And here are coming to the premier financing institution in the continent, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Without financing, all of these we're talking about doesn't happen, right, Kevin? And you're sitting on arguably the largest pool of money in this room. So why don't you tell us how you're going to help him, me, and actually all four of us in getting these projects done?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think to start with, I think the evolution in financing of transmission lines needs to be understood from a conceptual perspective. First of all, the understanding before was that transmission lines are what you call national monopolies, which means you cannot have parallel wires. So that notion has sort of been disabused to date. And there are very many examples around the world, Brazil, India, and other places, where you have privately financed transmission lines. So now, the thing is, as Engineer Matiba has just said, the model before was to borrow money and burden the exchequer. So, but the reality is, we've been able to prove that privately financed transmission lines can actually be financed by the private sector. And the idea here is that we must be able to reduce the cost of financing. We must be able to make sure that the financing is long-term. Because if you make it long-term, then you can actually be able to reduce. We must be able to come up with the guarantee mechanisms. We must be able to provide, for example, even fast loss to be able to reduce the cost of financing. So at the bank, we have an array of instruments, both from partial risk guarantees, long-term concessional financing, and we can even help attract what we call climate finance to further reduce the cost of financing. Because the idea here is, you find a situation whereby when we did privately financed generation projects, there was the notion that it is expensive. So the one thing that we must be able to do, and this is what we do very well as a development finance institution, is to be able to come up with various products that, first of all, will ensure that the risk perspective from an investor is significantly reduced in order to be able to crowd in investors such as Africa50 or other partners who are interested in looking at this kind of project. So I think for us as a bank, what we do is to understand that in order for you to be able to move generation to where the customers are, you must be able to transmit this power. And if we have been able to develop generation, then we need the transmission systems, and we must be able to now go beyond public financing to private financing. And that's what we are now doing through what we call our Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa. We can be able to bring blended financing to be able to make the cost of financing competitive. We can do even up to 20, 25 year money on private sector to be able to ensure that these long-term projects are able to be financed. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Monsieur le ministre Ngatse, vous avez entendu le vice-président de la BAD. Je pense que si je me rappelle bien la géographie du Congo, toutes vos unités de production sont vers Pointe-Noire et les centres de demande sont à 500, 600, 800 km plus loin, ce qui veut dire que vous avez des besoins énormes.
You need a huge transmission line, and you've just explained to us it hasn't been done because you haven't checked it. I think that the president is here, and he knows how many times his brother, President Sassou, keeps asking him every day for him to help us. But there are also other settings which are linked to the determination of the national debt for Congo. Unfortunately, it's limited, but I want to say that Congo now is implementing a huge program to restore this sector. And we're going to move from being a public sector to a mixed sector, which has the production companies, transport and trade. And we are supported by external partners, African Development Bank and the World Bank, and the contract is, the signature of the contract is ongoing, and $100 million from the World Bank is going to be issued for us to be more attractive to private investors, because the electricity system that we have now has been there for a long time. And talking about transport, of course, Congo has a huge problem, because now, independently on the fact of the hydropower energy, Congo is a country that shares the the watershed of a river with our neighbors. So we have a huge potential, but for the moment we need to in order to make sure that we produce enough electricity, we have 30% of hydropower plant energy investment, and discussing about it, we're talking about recycling, especially for the hydropower plant that produces 400 megawatts. We can also recycle that. If we combine it with the funding with the bank, we can do many things with Congo to improve the quality of the offer. But let me conclude saying that the opportunity that is offered to us for the transformation of this sector is great for Congo, because President Rajouin talked about subvention. For us, it's double compared to Madagascar, without counting the loss of VAT, etc., which is considerable. So if we can restructure, if we can be accompanied by private partners, if we can reduce all these subventions, we can, I think it can help the country create additional support supply. So for the same sector, now we all know about Brazzaville and Pointe-Noire production, which are not enough, and there's an industrial group that is coming, that is going to produce more electricity. We need to invest in that sector for us to be able to export even to the neighboring country like Congo, that needs a lot of electricity. That's a huge project. The other countries as well, like Central Africa and Cameroon, I see the minister is here. In fact, these should be developed in our country. We have an hydropower plant that should be developed. We need to have a sub-regional market to exchange capacities. That's what I wanted to add. I have colleagues in the room that work in a transmission line platform that can help you without an additional debt. It would be a pleasure, because at the same time, between Brazza and Pointe-Noire, we are implementing this line, because at Pointe-Noire we have a huge capacity for gas, and for the moment we can send to the neighboring countries, especially Cabinao of Angola and Ingapu, which is at the southwestern side of Congo, with the mining project in Katanga and the other provinces of the south.
And this conversation could continue for another hour, but unfortunately I am not master of time, and I've been asked to cut it short, but I will ask for the indulgence, because I would be remiss if I didn't give our host the opportunity for 30 seconds to give us the final words for this panel. Mr. Minister.
Merci. Effectivement, donc on a vu un peu les différents exemples qu'il y a. Et un des aspects sur lesquels je voudrais faire l'appel aux institutions financières internationales, c'est qu'il ne peut de développement que de développement endogène. Il faut croire en son secteur privé. Le secteur privé à Madagascar est assez dynamique. L'accès et la disponibilité des
fonds. The availability of international funds are limited in terms of sustainability, with variations at the risk of currencies. So maybe we can see we should give the country availability of funds to participate in, to give access to PPP and promote international investors, because ambassadors first have to work for the socio-economic environment where they are, and then learn from examples all over Africa, and together we can make an Africa of the future Africa a joyful and a prosperous one.